It is one of the most widely recognized and most watched TV networks in the world. ESPN, the so-called worldwide leader in sports, is now more than 3 decades old. But where did the idea come from, and why did it succeed against all odds? We'll ask its founder about the birth of ESPN right now on It's Your Call. You know, it may not seem odd now in our all news, all sports, all the time TV, internet, Facebook world, but at one time the idea of having a 24-hour sports network on TV was considered somewhat radical. After all, who would watch just sports at all hours of the day and night? Well, millions of people, that's who. ESPN is perhaps one of the most successful TV networks in broadcasting history. Hello, everyone. It's good to have you with us. I'm Lynn Doyle, and this hour on It's Your Call, we meet the man who founded the Entertainment Sports Programming Network. This is Bill Rasmussen. He's an entrepreneur, a lifelong sports fan, the founder of ESPN, and author. His book, Sports Junkies Rejoice, The Birth of ESPN, is now available in paperback, and it tells the story of how Bill and a few others made their vision of sports on television come true. So great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Lynn. Nice to be with you. 30
years of ESPN.
Isn't it hard to believe?
Who would have thunk it? I mean, honestly, when you were trying to put this idea together back in 1978, people kind of looked at you and said, what are you thinking?
Exactly. And, you know, the conventional wisdom was that the 3 networks knew everything there was to know about television, and nobody in the rest of the history of the world was ever going to know any more. And basically, we ended up challenging them. That's what happened.
Boy, that was a challenge, too. You laid down the gauntlet.
We did, and some of the interesting things that happened, the networks all said bad things about us, and one of the people that did was the president of NBC Sports in April, and then he found out his contract was not going to be renewed, and guess what? We hired him, and suddenly he was a cable convert. So all kinds of strange things happened, all in a very, very short time, from the time we started with the idea till the time we had the financing and the customers and everything, all before we went on the air. It only took 9 months, and then we had to figure out how to get it all on the air.
It's amazing that there's an entire generation of people who've grown up having ESPN at their disposal. They have no idea what it was like pre-ESPN.
Exactly, and when you think about it, that year, it keeps going back farther and farther. It's like anybody that's 40 years old today probably doesn't remember the world without ESPN, with the old 12 channels and buttons and, you know, all those kinds of things, and set-top boxes. And there was no Fox, there was no Comcast, there was no MTV, no CNN when we went on the air. It was really, we didn't know any better. That's why it worked. We just charged ahead and did it.
Now we have to talk about that charging ahead, because here you have this somewhat radical idea. After all, in my introduction, I said, who the heck would be watching all sports all the time? And where would all of these sports come from? So when you were trying to convince people, particularly those who were going to finance you, and then later those who would carry the product, what line of reasoning did you use? How did you try to convince them that this really was, a visionary idea?
Well, basically we said, look, we're a nation of sports fans. That was number one. And fortunately for us, because we were talking about sports all the time, more games than you'll ever see, more of this, more of whatever it's going to be. And fortunately for us, those big 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS, only did like 25 football games between them in a year. They only produced about 1,300 hours of sports between them, 300 or 400 hours each. And we were talking about 8,760 hours and lots of football games.
Wow.
And every time we went in to talk to somebody, they'd say it's never going to work. And who's going to watch it? This can't happen, and so on. And one day I was in Denver, where all the cable headquarters were at the time. And I was talking to another fellow who had been in the broadcast business like I had been. And he said, it's not going to work, but I'll tell you what, if it works, I want to be your first customer. So I figured we made progress. We now had somebody saying, it might work, because he said, I want to be there if it does.
And talk about working 24 hours, 7 days a week. You and your son particularly worked on this just nonstop, because as you said, it was really a very short period of time from the time you incorporated to the time you actually launched. What, 9 months or so?
Well, in 9 months we put all the pieces together, and it took us 14 months to actually get on the air. We said in 1978 we were going to start in September. On September 7th, 1979, we picked a Friday because we figured we could go into the weekend. everybody said, why are you picking, we don't know if we're going to make that. Let's do something, open-ended. We said, no, we're going to do it, because the cable industry then was notorious for making an announcement and never delivering. So we might have been among the first to say, this is it, we're going on the air. And that led to a lot of strange things, I'll tell you. We didn't have a control room that worked. So we had to.
Well, you know what? 30 years later, that still happens sometimes.
Oh yeah, well, let me say, not worked. We didn't have it finished construction.
Well, that's different.
So we put a remote truck out back, and we were actually on the air for about a month on just a remote truck, like we'd come down here and go down to Citizens Ballpark or something.
Been there, done that as well. And people have no idea how much money it took to get all of this on the air, especially at the beginning. It was, unproven, untried. You put it on now and people are, you're going to get viewers. But at the time, that was a tremendous financial risk.
It was indeed, and our risk was a $9,000 credit card advance. People ask me that, and they chuckle, and I say, but the $146 million from Getty helped.
Yeah, I would think so. Okay, so finally the long-awaited launch day came, and we have the first words. It's not sound, but we have the first words that were ever uttered on ESPN. I'm sure that you probably remember what they are.
I actually spoke them this very morning.
Okay, so let's take a look at it. Here it is. If you're a fan,
what you'll see in the next minutes, hours, and days to follow may convince you you've gone to Sports 7. Beyond that blue horizon, it's a limitless world of sports, and right now you're standing on the edge of tomorrow. Sports, 24 hours a day from ESPN, the Total Sports Cable Network.
And who uttered those words?
Lee Leonard.
And he had
worked at NBC and was doing some freelance things, and when our president at that time that we hired from NBC was looking for someone that wasn't on regularly, that would be a new face, in effect, to the cable audience. And he called Lee, lived in New Jersey, and said, would you come up and do this for us? And he did.
How about that? And he was a new face because people hadn't seen
we were
ESPN, right? I was going to say, anyone else on air. But if you are a longtime fan of ESPN, perhaps you started watching it from the very beginning, you're going to recognize some of the faces and some of the names. So what went on? That's fine to say what his first words were, but then what did you show, or what was the product?
Well, we told the world what we were going to do, that from now on, this, pounding the desk, this is going to be the center of this world of sports, and, people kind of roll their eyes, but those few people who saw it. And then we did an NCAA preview with Bill Flynn, the president of the NCAA, and then we did what we thought was going to be great when we scheduled this. Our first live event was the slow pitch softball championship from Louisville, Kentucky. Now, tournaments were played. You don't know who's going to be playing in the finals. Along the way, we had picked up Budweiser as an exclusive sponsor, and so Lee Leonard then threw it to Louisville. I don't remember who the announcer was, but he said, welcome to Louisville and tonight's first game of the World Slow Pitch Softball Championship featuring the Kentucky Bourbons and the Milwaukee Schlitz. Brought to you by Budweiser. It was an interesting moment because
so you had rivalry right from the very beginning. And the first thing that was on was a female sport? It was softball?
No, it was the men's slow pitch. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And
there for a minute, I thought you were really radical by putting the women on.
No, not that radical then. But the Budweiser guy was right here by my left elbow. He said, what did I do? I said, who knows who's going to play in the game?
You had an anecdote right from the very beginning. Right. We're going to share some more anecdotes and some more of Bill's memories as the founder of ESPN. But first, we have to take a quick break. If you are an ESPN fan or you have questions or comments, you can email us at lynn@lynndoyle.net. We're going to check in with some of those questions when we come back. Stay with us. 2 minutes. We'll be right back.